Welcome to VoIP Business Talks. My name is Vilis, and today I'll share an interview with Sergio Charrua from Portugal. He's a developer of software solutions based on Camelio, Asterisk, MariaDB, and Galera. Actually, Sergio has been developing with Basic and Pascal since he was 15. In 2007, when Asterisk was the most popular telephony platform, Sergio started his professional career in IVR and VoIP systems. He led a project for a telco operator in Portugal and was responsible for the development and support of IVR and Televoting platform based on Asterisk, actually 14 Asterisk servers that reached a peak of 600 CPS, calls per second. Since then, he started some SIP consulting services and also worked on a much bigger project on Brazil, also related with the televoting. Just that time, the scale was 3 data centers, 120 servers, and it reached peaks of 35,000 CPS. During the interview, Sergio also shares some tips on improving Asterisk performance, specifically by using better network cards and not using Asterisk AGI scripts. This is a more technical interview, but we also touch some interesting points about the VoIP market in Portugal and Brazil.
20 times bigger than Portugal, so we had to make it 20 times bigger also, the platform, about 120 servers. We have around 600 CPS, calls per second, shared between 14 servers. And we noticed immediately some huge improvement on it. 50%, 40 and something percent is of the market belongs to Altice Telecom. The other 50% are divided between NOS and Vodafone. Then there are 4 or 5% that are divided between 2 or 3 small operators.
If you like this episode, please like, comment, and share it with others who might find it useful. Thanks, and see you on the other side. So Sergio, first of all, maybe you can introduce who you are, how you are related with VoIP business, and then we will talk a bit more how you got into it.
Okay, so I'm Sergio, consultant for about 25 years already. Currently, I'm almost 49. And I started with voice over IP back in 2006, 2007, more or less, mostly developing IVR solutions, okay, for a telephone operator here in Portugal who have a project for televoting contesting for TV shows and radio also. So I started with Asterisk back then. We developed a small cluster of 14 servers, all with E1 cards. Then we moved to SIP, and the cluster is still on use nowadays with many updates, of course. And since then, I've been related to the voice over IP market, mostly as a consultant, but also as a distributor from some brands of appliance and gateways and IP phones also. Then I moved to other operators also who required more or less the same application related to televoting. I've been involved in the project for the Altice Portugal here for their televoting platform also. And in 2014, 2015, we started also with the same project in Brazil, where we had a good contract with a big telco there in Brazil, and most of the TV channels and TV companies in Brazil also. So, as you know, Brazil is 20 times bigger than Portugal. So we had to make it 20 times bigger also, the platform, about 120 servers in 3 different data centers, and all connected with each other, sharing data between them, software and everything else. So yeah, so that's mostly it. And in the past couple of years, as I've also developed from scratch a wholesale infrastructure for a telephone operator also here in Portugal, all based on Camalio and Asterisk also, and that's it basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it looks like everything started with Asterisk, but how did you learn in general, like programming or Asterisk? Did you were your studies related with telecommunication, or did you learn it yourself?
No, I learned myself. Actually, I've been developing since I was 15. So I started very soon with BASIC, and then Turbo Pascal and everything. Most people probably don't remember it, but that was the way it was in the 80s and the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So and Asterisk was easy for me to learn, because it is very similar to BASIC also. So it's not really it wasn't really an issue to learn developing in extension language, Asterisk extension language. Okay. We have also back then, so in the first telecom operator where we developed the televoting software, we tried to use AGI scripts in PHP and Perl, but we found that by using AGI, the processing, the load of the CPU was getting too high. So, which meant that the company was losing some calls. So we managed to transform what was done in AGI directly to Asterisk extension language, using some ODBC functions also directly to SQL server, and we noticed the difference since then. So most of my projects do not use AGI scripts. We or if we use AGI scripts, it's very mostly to get some environment variables or something like that. It's very fast AGI callings, and we don't use AGI anymore. So yeah, so the development was back then. We used a lot of the voip.pt portal, which was the main source of the documentation and the information for Asterisk. I still use it from time to time, I must say, and that's it. We learned mostly. Yeah.
Just a quick intro for those who don't know what AGI in Asterisk means. Maybe you can just explain.
Yeah, AGI is a kind of an interface between Asterisk and the other programming languages. It's not really an API, but it kind of is an API. What you can do with, for example, when using PHP, for example, you can directly call in PHP some functions in Asterisk, and get values from Asterisk and make your own dial plan, for example, in PHP, which for the most common developer is probably easier than understanding how the Asterisk extension language works, and and make use of better use of Asterisk like this.
So getting back to this televoting project, I assume, at least for me, televoting, I associate it with like big call volumes, a lot of call attempts. And
True.
Asterisk is, as we know, it's not very good tool to manage a high call per second, like a lot of calls per second.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with this in general? Why did you choose Asterisk? Like, was it your decision or was it like corporate decision? And how did you manage to solve this problem?
Yeah. When we got to the project, to the first project, televoting project, we arrived, the operator had already its infrastructure developed on Asterisk because it was the most used telecommunication framework back then. Also, just to make clear, Asterisk was in version 1.2 and 1.4 also. So they had different versions of Asterisk in different servers, so which was also an issue for them. And I think they were using eight E1 slots or cards for each server. So we managed to have around 600 CPS calls per second shared between 14 servers, which is more or less 60 something calls per second for each server, which was not great, honestly, but it was more than enough for the type of TV shows and contests that they had back then. Okay. On the other side, for Brazil, we used Asterisk 13 back then. I think it was a 13, yeah, or 11 or 13, I'm not sure. And between 120 servers, we could get almost 34,000 calls per second. Wow. Which was a huge jump. And we probably could have a bit more, but we left it like this, and it was all using SIP. There were no E1 lines. It was everything on SIP. So yeah, that was a different project, different infrastructure, different servers, also different version of Asterisk. We found also that different version of Asterisk had different performance also. So we had to test between new branches of Asterisk and everything, which and we decided to keep Asterisk because, well, mostly because we had already the code developed and we could reuse the code that we had.
So like Asterisk capacity, like Asterisk ability to manage more CPS, was it only related with Asterisk version and the fact that you used SIP instead of E1s, or also you did some additional changes, maybe applied some know-how to achieve better performance?
We had to make most of the changes that we had was related to network cards. Okay, so we had to test some network cards. In Brazil, we used super micro servers. The networking interface were okay, but not enough. So we had to implement and install some Intel. I can't remember exactly the model of the card, but it was Intel networking cards, and we noticed immediately some huge improvement on it. Okay, of course the SIP was optimized. Not in terms of the code, because we still used back then the Chan SIP module, but we optimized it as much as we could with the help of also of the local operators, and that's it mostly. Okay.
And what about the database? When you have such huge volume, wasn't database a limit, a bottleneck?
Not really. In this case, we used each each server had its own database installed and running. Okay, so all CDRs were saved on that database. Okay. Then we extract those CDRs for example, in 5 minutes intervals. We would extract these CDRs, copy it to a database in Galera, MariaDB and Galera module, which would allow us to have as many nodes as we would like to have, just to make sure that everything was correctly saved and no issues with it. So we had no issues for it, fortunately. And the biggest secret is not using AGI at all. Okay. So pure Asterisk extension language, which has a better performance than AGI.
And you mentioned after that you had some experience with the developing a platform for a wholesale provider. So how did you meet this provider? What was their challenge? Why did they approach you? And what was the solution that you created?
So they approached me about 5 years ago with some requirements for one of their clients. Most clients they have are other operators, worldwide operators that would like to make calls and terminate calls here in Portugal, and buy the IDs numbers also. Okay, so in this case, the operator have only that client, but soon they started to have many more clients. So the challenge was having a single point of incoming calls, so a single IP address, and having a load balancing of the calls. Mostly the request was the balancing of the calls between SIP gateways. For the SIP gateways, we also selected Asterisk as the main software. For the load balancing and failover, we used Camaleo. And soon we moved the Asterisk servers only for some processing like IVRs and stuff like that. Everything else was done with Camaleo. So the routing was managed by Camaleo using some routing software that the client bought from a third-party company.
Okay. And do you still deal with them, or like this?
Yeah, from time to time we still deal with them, mostly when they have doubts or issues and difficulties in integration with other clients. We still have contact with them, fortunately.
How do you deal? It's interesting from the developer perspective, the difference between proprietary software and open source software.
Yeah.
Obviously you are a developer and you create products based on open source, but I'm just curious to see what differences you see just specifically in VoIP market or in sausage or billing platform market. What difference do you see in these solutions?
In this particular case, the biggest difference that we noticed is software being commercial, it is closed. Okay, they do have an API where you can use and to request routing details for where the call should be routed. But I do prefer open source for this. However, I haven't found any open source software with dynamic routing which would allow us to have as many algorithms for the routing as possible. Okay, so we tested some software, open source software, which was not enough for the client in terms of specifications and features. We then contacted as many possible providers, commercial providers as possible, namely Colmisoft. And we studied and analyzed the solutions, and the client selected the best solution that they thought it should be for them. Okay, and that's it. We then integrated the solution with the platform, mostly Asterisk and Camalio. In this case, we've used also some radius integration, which was also a challenge for me because I never used radius since until then. So, and that's it. Yeah, mostly the biggest difference for me, support. Okay. Being a commercial company, we also, the client also made some support contract with them, and indeed the support was very good. SLAs were very short, and they provide very good support. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Let's talk a bit about the VoIP Portuguese market. In general, how it looks like. I want to understand what are the challenges for small players. So maybe you can tell a bit, give like an overview of the local market.
Okay, so Portugal is more or less 100% covered with fiber optics in all the country since about 8-9 years ago, and there are four main operators here in Portugal. Okay, so we have Altice, which was formerly known as Portugal Telecom. We have Vodafone. We have NOS, which is a local operator here in Portugal, mostly with coaxial cable for TV and some FTTH also. And we have Oni Telecom. About 50%, 40 and something percent is of the market belongs to Altice Telecom. The other 50% are divided between NOS and Vodafone. Okay, then there are probably 4 or 5% that are divided between 2 or 3 small operators, but they are so small that they have not much how can I say, not much importance in market, let's say like that. The VoIP market here is well, in the last couple of years mostly there have been huge there have been new laws that do not allow anyone or any company to open a new telecom operator. Okay, so they require a lot of new requirements, which is a bottleneck for many small operators. Okay, so there is not many voice over IP operators in Portugal. I mean, legal operators, that in this case. There are probably a couple of them nowadays working and operating here in Portugal, but they have not much market. And the market is mostly for small companies, small and medium companies. Okay, the corporate market belongs mostly to Altice Telecom and Vodafone and NOS also. Okay, what the current operators here in Portugal, they have also been for the last 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years, doing a lot of sales related to their IP-centric solutions. So they have very competitive prices, both for the equipment then and for the rates, also national and international rates, which makes it very hard to small companies to compete. Okay, so I don't think there will be new operators in the next years. Maybe actually there are a new operator is installing here in Portugal, which is DG, who comes from Romania, but it is, as far as I can understand, it is mostly for data companies. So they provide the internet access mostly.
Okay, so it's not a good idea to start a small VoIP business in Portugal.
It might be hard to make it a good business here in Portugal. Yeah.
And by the way, this wholesale provider, the client of yours, were they operating outside Portugal, or they are
Yes.
clients? Okay.
Most of their clients, if not all, are foreigners. So they work mostly in international market, and they are making wholesale not only for Portugal but for other countries also. And as far as I know, it is working. I would say okay, it's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear, because quite often we see wholesale providers, they open, they close. A lot of clients are complaining about tight profit margins.
True.
But
That's true.
So sometimes it's good to hear also positive stories that someone is.
I think that the biggest advantage is that this wholesale operator has is that they provide the ID numbers from a bit all over Europe, okay, and at very good prices, which probably they still have a better margin than selling minutes, okay, termination calls and stuff like that. They have very little margin for it. So I would say that most of their business is related with the ID numbers, and then the termination minutes is also a nice plus to have and for them also.
I see. And you mentioned that there is like white and black market. Obviously, in VoIP there is like we all know that there is VoIP GSM termination, which is like white on one side, black on another, and it is our so-called gray routes. So when you talk about the black market in Portugal, do you refer to the people who terminate calls through VoIP GSM gateways, or do you refer to something else?
No, I don't personally. I don't know anyone terminating GSM calls to using GSM gateways. For sure, there are. I won't say there are none. However, there are many resellers from other very well-known wholesale providers online, for example, VoIPbuster and stuff like that. Okay, which are still not legal to do that in Portugal without any license. Okay, but they do, and everybody knows them, so it's okay. But I don't think they have many. The market share for them is very low, so I don't think they will have any issue for them.
But who is their target audience? Are these end users or corporate clients?
Honestly, I don't know. Probably some small and medium companies that would be probably the normal. Maybe some house users, but even for the retail house users, I don't think they have many clients, because operators here in Portugal, they sell you triple play or four play plan, which includes all the international calls to all Europe and some North American countries and Brazil. So there is not much advantage to anyone to contract some other providers than the one they already have at home. So I would say that probably some small companies are still using this. Yeah.
You mentioned that you also had this project in Brazil, so you had a chance to experience Brazilian market a bit. If you know, what type of differences do you see in Brazilian and Portuguese telecommunication market?
Size, mostly. Yeah, the size. The Brazilian telecommunications is very messy in terms of routes, okay? Because not all operators have agreements between operators, and it is a federal state, so it is divided in multiple states. I don't know how many, and not all operators operating in a state have access to other states. So it is very hard to have the correct routes. The DID number and the numbering range is also very confusing. You can have the same number in different states, but not to the same person. So sometimes it is a bit confusing also to have the correct routes and stuff like that. Honestly, I haven't had many or any experience with Anatel, which is the country's how do you say regulator in Brazil. So I can't tell if they have many difference with Anacom, which is the regulator here in Portugal. I know they have huge restrictions on the equipments that you can connect to the network, like gateways and appliances and even IP phones. They are very restrict on which equipments that can be connected to their network. Here in Portugal, it is more or less free, as long as you have, as long as the equipment has the CE approval, you can use anything. And as far as I know, it's more or less that. Yeah.
But these requirements in Brazil, do they come from this regulation authority?
Yes, yeah. The regulator and the authorities, they verify from time to time which equipments are connected to the network, which equipments are imported to Brazil, and they filter everything. Yeah, that's true. Okay. So unless you have the certification for that equipment, and the Anatel, which is the authority, gives you the certification, you can't sell it. And if you sell it, and if the authorities catch you selling some equipment that has no certification, it can be an issue for you. Okay.
But I guess then, if that's the case, then I guess the black market in Brazil should be much higher.
Probably. I don't have much details about that kind of market here in Brazil, but most probably.
I have noticed, like in Brazil, I've noticed at least earlier that a lot of companies were using like our correct version, at least before, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago or even more. Okay. And sometimes like in Europe, if you use like a correct version and you are a telecom operator, it wouldn't be your best choice.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how it works in Brazil.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. And anyway, So getting back to Europe, one more question about the challenges, why why it's hard to do VoIP business in Portugal, for example. So you mentioned that recently, like one thing is strict laws, right? Mm-hmm. That recently they became strict. And what about the competition? Like maybe it's just the margins are not there. Maybe the market it's too hard to steal a client from an established operator. Yeah. What are other challenges for small guys?
Well, as I said, the telecom market here in Portugal is dominated by the three main operators. Okay. And it is very hard to compete with their prices. So to give you an example, they can sell you or rent you IP phone with 1,000 minutes of calls for €5 a month per seat. So it's very cheap, okay?
Yeah.
And that includes already the IP phone. So anyone that wants to get into the voice over IP market in Portugal needs to have very competitive prices, which is hard to have. Okay, even if you go to wholesales, international wholesale, it's hard to have a €5 rent for months. Okay, a €5 fee, a monthly fee of €5, including the telephone and 1,000 minutes for a seat. It's very competitive and it's very hard. Okay, so that is including one of the reasons I haven't yet done anything related to it. So I still prefer to be a consultant and developer for voice over IP and telcos. I personally I'm not only related to voice over IP, I'm also related with IoT and data warehouse. So I work, I have a contract with one of the biggest telcos in the world for this, where I still develop and design IoT and data warehouse solutions. And but still, probably half of my time is spent with voice over IP projects, not only for Portugal but other countries also, and I think that's it. So Portugal is a small market. It is a small country with a small market. So as we are all in a global world, doesn't make much sense to be based only on Portugal.
Yeah, makes sense. And you mentioned you also do something with the equipment. Do you resell voice-related equipment in Portugal?
Yes, since 2012, I think. I resell and distribute Zyco equipment, mostly appliance and some analog gateways from them. Also the IP phones, I do also distribute them. I'm very satisfied with them. The equipment is very good. I can't complain. And the features are also all there. So from time to time, I do sell some equipment. Okay.
Where are they based?
The Zyco is based in China.
Okay.
Well, the factory is in China. The engineering is in China also. However, they have a warehouse in Czech Republic, so it makes it easier for us in Europe to order their equipment directly from the Czech warehouse, and that's it. So we can provide good pricing also with it, and delivery times are very short. So
it's not hard to juggle between SIP consulting, selling VoIP equipment. How do you manage?
Yes, it is. However, I don't sell directly to end users. I do have some resellers. So I do not make a commercial business, if I can say like this. I prefer to have consultant and development and services based business, which is probably most I can say where I can get a better margin than selling equipment. Okay, so and having a few resellers for me was the best solution we could find.
So Sergio, you've been in VoIP market for quite a while. You developed Asterisk, Camilio. How do you see the VoIP market in the future? Where is it moving in your?
That's a good question. I think that all developments related to voice will be more like value services, and not only routes. Okay, so I still see many good opportunities for call centers, developing solutions for them, maybe integrating other communication platforms like WhatsApp and stuff like that with the call center solutions. I do see value added services to be a nice niche of market, mostly voicemail gateways, IVR software, IVR solutions also. On the other side, for routing, soft switching is a good market also, but the problem is the number of possible clients is very short on soft switch, which is mainly for operators. So here in Portugal, if you have half a dozen of operators, is probably the max that we'll find for clients. I do see lots of opportunities to have companies connected in multiple countries. Let's say a company that has office here in Portugal, in Spain, France, and Germany, they can have all those offices connected to each other with SIP trunks and using their own hardware and software, which is very good for them also, because they won't depend on any other operator to make calls between them. They only depend, of course, for the internet access and stuff like that. Okay, in the current, I do have some clients in Africa, banking area also, and they do have a lot of calls to local PSTN. They use Asterisk servers in their banks, and they also have a VPN connection between the 5 countries where they operate. Okay, which is nice to have, because they spend a lot less money making calls, international calls, than they would do if they used PSTN lines.
Yeah, so it's interesting that banks are using Asterisk, not some proprietary Sony or Cisco equipment.
Well, yeah, I would say in this case, they are small banks. They are not the biggest banks in their countries, even though they do have some good size in a few countries. But I don't expect them to use Cisco or whatever other brands, mostly because of the price. Also because they do not have many resources, engineers and stuff like that with a knowledge on Cisco and other equipment. So open source in this case is a very good solution for them, for small countries, and it works perfectly. So why change it, right?
Of course. Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so Sergio, where can people learn more about you if they have some questions or maybe would like to work with you?
You can find me in LinkedIn. The main website of the company is voip.pt. So you can reach us through the website and or email if you wish, but mostly in LinkedIn. I don't use commonly. I don't use Facebook or other social networks, but mostly LinkedIn.
Okay, and are you active in general on LinkedIn? Do you post about VoIP?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I do some posts. Not much, okay. not as much as I wish, but yeah, I do some posts.
Great. So
I also participate in many forums. Okay, so
okay.
For example, in Stack Overflow, if you have some questions related to Asterisk or Camalio, I usually if I know the answer, of course, I usually post my answer and help as much as I can. I'm also in many user lists for Camalio and Asterisk, also, so mailing lists, I mean, and you can reach me through this.
By the way, also interesting, where do you mentioned that earlier you found a lot of answers in VoIP info website. Where do you currently look for answers to VoIP or Camalio or Asterisk related topics?
Yeah, so Camalio mostly on the mailing list and the official website. Okay, the documentation they have is pretty good. VoIP info has less good information currently.
After they were bought by 3CX.
Yeah, exactly. They have lost. Well, most of the info is out of date, and they haven't updated new details. Also, Asterisk.org, the wiki has very good info, mostly obviously for Asterisk. Even though it is not very easy to find what you want. However, I must say I use most of the time I use Camalio. Call Me Soft to find some details in mostly integration with Camalio, SIP tips, and small details that sometimes it is hard to find in other websites. And for this, I must say that Call Me Soft is doing a great job keeping the wiki and the blog up to date.
Thank you. Yeah, so we will also add a link to your LinkedIn profile, to your website, also to wiki.colmsaw.com, where you find some of your information. We will add all these details. So, okay, thanks, Sergio. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks a lot.
For sharing your experience. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Nice talk. Thank you.
Thank you.